December 2001. America's seventh largest company collapses almost overnight. Enron, once untouchable, once brilliant, once admired, files for bankruptcy. Employees walk into their offices and the doors won't open. Their savings, tied to Enron stock, vanish within hours. Stock that climbed to nearly $90 a share crashed to almost nothing. Wall Street panics, the media scrambles, everyone asks, how could this happen? This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad luck. It was a performance, carefully staged, brilliantly executed, and completely fake. After the collapse, it's easy to ask, how did Enron go from a small, sleepy pipeline company to the biggest financial circus in America? Enron began in 1985, a merger of two regional gas pipeline companies in Houston. For years, it was boring and regulated, barely noticed until executives saw a much bigger opportunity. The idea was simple: sell confidence, not gas. Forget the pipelines. The real product was illusion, making investors believe the company was smarter, faster, and richer than anyone else. Executives didn't just run a business, they staged appearances. Numbers weren't reported, they were performed. Tiny tricks and exaggerations became the norm, and hype replaced reality. The mindset was clear: never let reality ruin the story. Profit on paper mattered more than actual profit. Confidence could be sold, illusions could be marketed, and the world bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. Enron's first big trick was mark-to-market accounting, a fancy way of saying they counted money before it even existed. Here's how it worked. Enron would sign a contract to sell energy for the next 10 years. Instead of waiting to earn that money, they pretended they already had it. That future profit instantly became part of their official revenue. On paper, the company looked like a cash machine. Every deal, even the ones that hadn't started, added millions to the books. While in reality, no actual money had changed hands. The profits were pure imagination. The problem? Once you start faking numbers, you can't stop. Every quarter had to look bigger than the last. Every agreement had to be better than the last. The entire illusion began to falter after one incorrect estimate and one slow contract. Mark-to-market provided the sense that Enron was unstoppable before it became a trap. Executives were pushed farther into dishonesty by the pressure to continue creating profits, which paved the way for the next even larger swindle. As Enron's schemes got bigger, they brought in Andrew Fastow, their CFO, who was practically a magician when it came to dressing up fake numbers as legitimate business. He built a tangled mess of companies called special purpose entities, with names like Raptors and LJM, which are literally the initials of his wife and kids. Even the names were all part of the game, a small personal touch and a giant fake financial circus. Supposedly, these groups existed to manage risk and shield Enron from lousy investments, but in reality, they were just clever hiding spots for Enron's growing pile of losses. Here's the scam. Enron would sell failing assets to these SPEs. Then, because Fastow controlled both sides, he could set the price, cover the losses, and even profit personally. The same money kept moving in circles, but nobody outside of the company could see it. These SPEs turned Enron's failing deals into success stories on paper. Fastow wasn't just hiding the truth, he was creating a shadow economy inside of the company. And the higher the stakes, the more the executives cashed in, while investors and employees were left completely in the dark. The entire setup was ridiculous. Companies hiding behind other companies they actually ran, faking profits out of thin air. Auditors and investors just stared at these impossible spreadsheets, believing numbers that didn't mean anything. Everything was kept under wraps by all of these hidden layers. Enron appeared to be able to do no wrong from the outside. In all actuality, though, it was all just an illusion that was about to crumble. While Enron was busy creating illusions on paper, the executives were turning those lies into real money. Jeff Skilling, the CEO, obsessed with growth and appearances. Ken Lay, the company's founder and political operator, and Andrew Fastow, the cunning CFO, all cashed out millions in stock and bonuses. They traveled in private jets, they lived in villas and luxury they didn't earn. They stole it from the story that they wrote. Meanwhile, employees were told to invest their 401k retirement savings in Enron stock, believing the company seemed unstoppable. While workers nearly instantly lost their life savings, executives became wealthy. Homes, pensions, and futures disappeared. The moral injustice was staggering. Those who created the scam walked away with millions, while those who trusted the company got nothing but regret. While Enron's top brass twisted the numbers, Wall Street just kept applauding. Analysts called Enron a star, hyping up its growth and revenue even when the math didn't add up at all. So why did they do it? It's simple. These analysts and investment banks had skin in the game. They pulled in millions of dollars in underwriting Enron's deals. So why rock the boat? Staying quiet was just easier and more profitable. The entire system was a mess. Rating agencies, banks, and specialists ignored the warning signs which allowed the fraud to spread. The banking community continued to act as though nothing was wrong as Enron continued to deceive. In other words, fraud wasn't just inside of Enron. It was protected by the very people who were supposed to stop it. But not everyone fell for the act. Sharon Watkins, one of Enron's vice presidents, spotted trouble before most people did. She fired off a memo, straight to the point, saying the company was heading straight for disaster. She criticized all of those dangerous transactions and the dubious bookkeeping, but she was dismissed by the higher authorities. Instead of tackling the mess, they downplayed her warnings, spun the story to make it seem harmless, and treated the whole fraud as just another PR problem. Enron wasn't collapsing by chance. The whole thing was a show built on lies from the very start. By 2001, the house of cards could no longer hold. Enron was forced to restate its earnings, correcting years of inflated profits. The truth that had been hidden in spreadsheets and SPEs was finally coming to light. The stock collapsed, credit ratings dropped. Investors freaked out and dumped whatever they could. The company everyone thought was invincible was crashing, and everyone could see it happening. Things were out of control at Enron's headquarters, with executives crammed into meeting rooms and phones ringing non-stop in an attempt to find a way out. Workers watched their funds go up in flames as they stood around staring at the stock ticker. Meanwhile, the Securities and Exchange Commission kicked off its investigation, finally shining a light on all of the tricks Enron had been hiding for years. What had been a secret game of numbers was now a public disaster, and there was no turning back. Enron's lies didn't go unchecked, but the watchdogs were asleep, or worse, complicit. Arthur Andersen, one of the biggest accounting firms at the time, was supposed to audit Enron and keep the company honest. They didn't just audit Enron, they worked as consultants too, which is a conflict of interest. When investigators showed up, Andersen didn't just sit on their hands. They shredded documents, deleted emails, and tried to cover their tracks, doing everything they could to hide the fraud. In the end, some higher-ups took the fall. Skilling and Fastow landed in prison, and Ken Lay died before he could serve time. The banks and financial partners, they paid some fines, but barely anyone actually went to jail. The system designed to safeguard investors was a complete failure. The fraud wasn't limited to Enron. It was made possible by a network of organizations designed to prevent it. When Enron went down, the fallout didn't just rattle Wall Street. It shook up big companies, investors, and regular folks just trying to do their jobs. Lawmakers stepped in and rewrote the playbook. Sarbanes-Oxley became the new norm suddenly. CEOs were now required to sign financial statements, and auditors weren't allowed to ignore them. Everyone had to accept accountability. But no rule can make up for the damage. The public's confidence in financial reporting, banks, and corporations was permanently damaged. Enron was more than just a scandal. It was a warning about the cost of ignoring facts, unchecked ambition, and blind trust.